Hello, world. I'm Max. Welcome to another episode of the State Copy Podcast. As always, I'll remind you that this content is meant to be consumed in series from the beginning. See episode 0 and each segment appended for all applicable terms and disclosures. Appended segments can be identified by their title prefix, scp.0. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm excited about today and yesterday. I'm experiencing like a goddamn eureka moment of all eureka moments. Like light bulb and the wheel, the printing press like. Um, I'll say I feel great, I slept great, and I took a heavy hit of sativa before I got started today. And on the way here, in that 5 minutes, I had an epiphany. Oh shit, it's good. All right. So, uh, the next episode of the public broadcast needs to capture the concept of composability as nodes on the network for sharing information and trust. So, this is where I can state that, and then I can go into I can explain what composability is in a software context, and I can explain the one of the core problems we have on our network, on our mesh right now, is nobody's written really good software for once we boosted bandwidth um, by creating the internet, and now that it's sort of crescendoing in rich content, audio, video, this type of content, um, we haven't deployed any trust protocols that are reliable. And it means nobody trusts anybody. Everyone looks like they're lying and has a hidden motive, because that's how we've aligned the system, the incentives in our system. So a real big description of incentives and how that's really how the universe works. Maybe a high level, there's no good and evil. There's just variability and incentive alignment. And it builds like high and low pressure systems in a weather pattern. And then gravity just kind of does the rest. So if with that understanding of the state variables before the process runs, it means even though we have all this rich content available over the internet these days, you can't, it's just you get a really noisy signal, and it makes it really inefficient to communicate good ideas, because the airspace is so clouded by bad signal. We need to flood it with good signal. And so what we do there is we realign all of the incentives for that behavior. And with State Copy Podcast, even if I'm totally wrong about the mission of transferring our consciousness over to a digital substrate, and if when we point algos at that to try and build out a reasonably high resolution state copy, the very act of trying means I'm building a composable framework for establishing authentic communication. I'm building a trust protocol for the mesh. And so now if you go into a high level analysis of what religion is versus state, let's say decentralized software between humans for sharing goals, values, and direction, some level of direction, like So if you say that that's basically what a religion is, if you look at it from first principles and you realize they're all just very similar things on our network, and they have varying degrees of success, they're kind of competing with each other. What somebody needs to do is create a new monster version of that uh, incorporates everything we've learned about modern engineering. Um, to what we need is a composable, well-designed um, framework for quickly doing that. So, as somebody who's made my career, my main focus, well, the first thing I think of in the morning, last thing I think about at night, is um, this project I'm working on. And so I consume so much YouTube content and I've gotten to a point where I'm to the really quality, and I'm tapped into the good network, and I have a lot of good protocols for making sure that I'm tuned to a reliable signal, and I can filter out all the noise, which is the signal's biases, and I can weigh that signal's counter signal. So like the polar opposite, like I mentioned, there's nothing black and white. Everything's gray, but you need to chart black and white in your mind to um, to fill in a meaningful picture of what gray looks like in between those points. Okay, so right now you almost have to do what I did, where you just plug into that thing 10 hours a day at least and search for it. And then once you get really good at tuning that needle, then you kind of have a reliable ongoing data feed. And so I have that now. But the problem is you cannot trust the signal you're getting unless you kind of build that data feed out yourself. You kind of have to go listen to, like I've pointed out a bunch of times, the credible voices in the room. Um, you have to go listen to them talk and talk to other people and search out people that oppose their views to see. That's how you get an understanding of whether they're giving you an honest, well-informed, well-thought-out signal. And it just takes too fucking long. So um, if you embrace it, like if we made state copy, basically, I mean, you could describe it as a religion. It's um, I want it to propagate on the network using that model. Um, so that means um, morning. So um, if we can just if you can, here's how. Okay, so this kind of gave me the shivers as I was thinking about it. But if I do this properly and I provide a really good manual for how to do this, then you can ratchet down the time needed to find um, quality signal. Like that's what I'm trying to optimize right here. I'm trying to create tools, composable tools for network uh, um, transmit and receive that give all of you a way to um, quickly find quality signal and when you broadcast, put out a higher quality signal, or at least one that has some credentials. Like I'm talking about a decentralized way to put the little blue check mark on your name in every broadcast you do on the network. So All right. If you hear me out through sequence of this, and then you see that the path I'm taking to to and it's a logic path, right? Like I'm by walking you through how I think about this and explaining why it's vital, I think, to be authentic and as honest as possible about what I think, because that's the whole reason I'm fucking doing it. Um, it means I can, in a much shorter time, establish some level of trust. And that's a really great optimization. Now, the other side of that is we have to fix the monetary incentives for that clear um, message communication, that um, transmit and receive. So I think the natural outcome of this is the honest, well-informed um, signal will be such high quality and value that the incentives will naturally align in its favor. So, okay, so if I do this effectively, if I can, uh, oh man, that's beautiful. All right, well that's pot too. It's really hard to reason through these things. Love the creativity though. Jesus. Okay, so once you create a network where there's an established protocol for quickly establishing credibility, you can have an honest dialogue amongst sort of the greatest minds. And then you create basically we're writing software for the social layer. And now if you prescribe to that religion, and there has to be a way to test that, you can't say it. So part of the protocol means if you want to compose uh, using this fabric that I'm trying to build, you have to be able to prove that you understand the content in a way that the rest of the network can quickly trust. Once you prove that you understand it, then you realize it closes the loop on its own. It once so once nodes on the network um, can quickly, all you need to do, that's what I'm trying to say. All you need to do is have a proof that you've absorbed all the content. So that would be State Copy Podcast, episode 0, or really episode 1, to whatever latest is. And if you can prove that on the network, then any content you put out, like just if you can demonstrate an understanding of this, because once you understand it, you realize that it's um, all your internal incentives align sort of properly in this way that we can all use and trust. Um, so yeah, and then once you compose that, then you can latch into a higher quality network that shares information way more honestly. And it's like going from waveform to MP3 between in network communication and quality. I mean, that's an exponential gain. And all you have to do is compose with state copy, and then users of the network can understand right away that you're a credible source for best educated, um, honest information. It's a great idea. Well, I managed to talk through like 6 passes there. Oh, fuck, that rattles me when I'm stoned. All right. So I think I need to expand on those. And what I'll do is I'll just append like further thoughts to the high level descriptions of those. Whew. Beautiful. Okay, I want to talk about incentives. So we need monetary incentives for good signal. And they need to be so goddamn good. And they'll be fed by. So one thing we need to do is establish a clear model for weighting. So, okay, here will be a really important part of the protocol design. So if you subscribe to state copy and you can prove that to the network, then you can participate with a higher level of trust than on um, the Wild West that exists on the internet today. Now, immediately, you should begin participants in that upgraded network, that upgraded mesh, are now able to share a much more authentic signal, and um, one that's exponentially better at making predictions and propagating um, the right course corrects for the species, like on things like climate change, etc. We can really get through like having authentic conversations and well-established uh, methodology for conflict resolution. And then what we do is we align all the incentives for that, where you kind of have all of the mechanisms that we use today around the ad model, where we're tracking how popular, because what we want to do is we want to create useful vote weightings for hot takes. You know what I mean? So once we have this higher quality network, now you align the incentives for quality of content and quick as possible consensus on um, neutral best outcome for species total. You know what I mean? Like, and then so you want to pay out based on those vote weightings, and that can just be subscribership. And with subscribership is a really useful flag. So you can watch an episode and you don't have to subscribe. But if subscription is vote tally, because you can still design an algo that will give you all the opposite perspectives, and you really should be seeking them out if you want to do well in this environment that I'm trying to build. You, um, but we can use the tools that are already there. Today we can start doing this. You can watch something, you can vote it up on the network, or you can subscribe And that's in a way giving a higher vote weighting to the content creator. So I think that a network like I just described of minds, like that small hive will quickly eat up the rest of the hive. It will propagate all this good software because all the incentives are aligned best to efficiently return, um, seek out and iterate toward best species outcome. And all of the, so I would say, like, people like me don't, as it stands today, I don't have any vote weighting, or like I don't have any credibility in, say, the Web3 crypto world. But I have a really well-informed take on present state, history, and where we're headed. And the problem is, I don't have a microphone, and then if you listen to me, you don't know if I'm feeling something. So until I put out enough years of content for you to establish a trust rating with me, you can't benefit from the knowledge I have. Now, if I can quickly establish that authentic trust, now you can kind of get a sense for, and the reason I have to talk through all my crazy notions about meaning a life, what I am, what my role in it is I'm trying to quickly establish exactly how I think. And I'm trying to give you guys tools to better understand if I'm bullshitting you. And, or I'm trying to make it to where all of my natural incentives are aligned for giving the truest signal, because I'm trying to capture the essence of who I am. If we can all adopt that playbook, then you can compose with that, and we can create this little network that's much more powerful. Yeah, I mean, like, once this thing is built, and as I fortify it, and that's the thing I think that's going to be important. I think you're going to have to be going back to prior, messaging and broadcast, and you're going to have to be updating it and giving, uh, like progressive takes over time, and that's going to, um, strengthen trust in the source. So, um, need to be going back and adding on these ideas and then updating thoughts about them over time. But also need to start just communicating what you think about stuff. You need to, like, anywhere where I have strong conviction, like I have a lot of really strong conviction in how I play Web3. And I can speak to you, uh, most passionately about that. And I spend a lot of my time, because I have a lot of compute that I'm allocating towards getting that right, because it establishes freedom of time and quantity of data ingress. Like, I need to secure that. So I need to focus a lot of my attention and compute on, securing that for eternity. And because I think about it that way, I realized that bets early on that are accurate are going to have such, I mean, when you start thinking like you might live forever, and you optimize how your mind functions, like I've been talking about, um, you can make a lot of bad bets. You don't even have to get it all right. You can learn how people hedge properly, how they spread. And, when you're really tuned to the signal of where you're going to see the most, in any present time, in the future, like in the moment, what I'm saying, in that snapshot, you're going to be able to make bets way better than the competition that doesn't do that. So Yeah, I mean, like part of my process needs to be talking about, and it's not as a shill. It really is me trying to be as honest as possible and share all of the value I've accumulated in this hobby of mine so that you all can benefit. And then we as a network can be more successful than the competition and pull them in, and they're all going to want to join. We create a gravity well for healthy, trustworthy, good thought that everyone will just, and they don't need to be convinced of it. Like, that's the thing. We need to engineer this religion, this new 21st century, everything, singularity moment for mankind, religion, to where it can iterate over time for best and align all the incentives. Um, use our species' ability to exert uh, effort, action, collaborative, coordinated um, outcome influence in this universe that we're in. Like that is ideal state. We maximize our ability to do that. And um, so we need to engineer the, and it's not, religion is thought virus. It's a distributed idea that has a bunch of protocols built into it for it to propagate over time, um, agnostic to how we're governing ourselves in the moment. And that's basically what it is. Well, now what we need to do is craft one with intention as software engineers with composability, reusability, and rollbacks. You need to be able to create forks, try new things, collect data on them, and then you need to make it really easy for everybody to sort of jump between branches. Um, we need ways to evolve um, before that. We need to create. So that's high level architecture. Low level, a component is just like the um, propagation. Um, Rather than just using a story um, and word of mouth, um, even though we have better bandwidth, we don't have a good signal right now. And so we need to design something that, like an engineer, takes uh, takes into account the noisy nature and of the network, where you can't trust. It's very difficult to propagate an idea like a religion. It has to be well crafted to be um, neutral frequency. Like you can't. It needs to. It needs to make sense as universally as possible to a man or a woman, a Republican or a Democrat, a uh, um, Chinese native, and U.S. native. All of these little tags we assign to ourselves to establish a group. Um, it needs to be accessible to everyone, and that's where it gets its power. Um, it's designed so it's like religions sound goofy to us now, and that's why they're really fading out. When we think about this, the Immaculate Conception and all of the, this dude rising from the graves, and he somehow died for everything bad humans do. The whole thing is just kind of nonsensical today, and that's why it's fading. Like, we're all just going, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Well, it doesn't mean that religion's bad. We as humans, that's our network protocol. That's how we efficiently organize and collaborate. So what we need to do, though, is take all of our knowledge, accumulated, well-curated knowledge, and inject that into the design of a new religion, a new network protocol for us all to interact and find consensus. And, part of that is, part of what religion was it was, okay, because I know you're um, Lutheran, I can I can make these assumptions. Like, it's like you assigned a tag to yourself that let other nodes get a summary view. And I think there's evolutionary reasons to do that because there's a lot of people who are allergic to sharing. There's a lot of people, like, you'll find people that don't put the bumper sticker on their car about how they're going to vote, and they think that's private, and they're almost offended when they see them. But it seems like there's far more people that do put the bumper sticker, and they put the flag on their house, and I mean, all that is you're putting a bunch of labels intentionally on yourself for the network to get a compressed view of your values so they can sort you, and they can, and um, if you do it well, then you find other people to interact with on the network that are closely aligned to your views, to your frequency. And that's actually one of our major innovations. So we should embrace that. That's how we interact. That's a core feature, not a bug, of our network. And we need to create really efficient tools to do that better with everything we've learned. Then we get community back, and we get a community that is incentivized to act in the best interest for all, because its stated, well understood vision is to create a collaborative consciousness, a collective that exists in harmony to create better outcomes for its collective self. God damn, that's beautiful. Gross. I tell you what, I feel like wisdom right now. An old book, The Whiz Biz, about that software developer from, I think the book was written in the 80s or 90s, but it was about sort of early um, programming language design time, like somebody who worked a lot with the really old shit, the COBOLs, the Fortrons, all of that crap. And um, They must have done that for a living, and then they became a science fiction writer or fantasy writer. And it's kind of both, the whiz biz. But it's such a cool idea. It's like the author invented a universe where magic works, kind of in the sense that we all think of, like from every movie and fantasy movie, book, and TV show, where you got your wizards, your magicians that can conjure arts that nobody understands because they have some innate talent, and then they study it over a period of time, where they can kind of like shoot lightning bolts and teleport and shit. Well, um, one of the wizards, because there's this huge like good versus evil battle happening between the magic community in this universe, and um, one of the most powerful magician in the world, that world, goes out into the woods and summons Wiz-Zumwalt from a parallel dimension or universe or just from another planet to his, and he gets himself killed in the process. And then everybody in the kingdoms are going, "Holy shit, we just lost our best guy to bring this weirdo from another planet here," and everybody hates him, and he doesn't know why he's there. Everybody's sure he must be a powerful magician, or the guy that brought him there wouldn't have made the sacrifice. And eventually, he starts like he gets exposed to magic by accident, and in that universe, you're given like uh there is no like um, innate ability. It's all just kind of out there, and if you have the right knowledge of how to interact with magic, um, it so children are taught from a young age. Don't wave this or say these words, and everyone is incentivized just for their safety not to use it or practice it, and people who do are looked at with great um, anxiety because they don't want them to accidentally blow up the whole town or something, fucking around with it. Well, Wiz gets there, and when he sees it, he's like, "Holy shit! I can build an interpreter, and I can build a programming language, and build out like function libraries that I can call, and then um, I can wield this magic as actually better than the pros here because they're just like memorizing these long incantations, and it's this really rare, difficult skill. And he creates an interface for it that any user can access. And it's like totally what I feel exactly like that right now. I feel like the State Copy podcast thing is, and this whole project that I've just kind of found my way to is, in a sense, that it's just I'm the right combination of stuff to see that to write that in the first attempt at an interpreter, and it'll be shitty because I'm a bad coder. I'm self-taught, and I'm really good at learning really complicated systems and getting just good enough to like be dangerous. And then I lose curiosity. Like I really, because I'm such a generalist, I'm not the guy to be architecting this, but I need to put together the first. But I feel like you need to be me in order to see how we can, in order to see the total picture of consciousness and to create this abstraction, you kind of have to be, I feel like me. So I think right away we need some really good software designers to adopt this um, understanding and passion and compose better architecture. I think that's going to be key to this. It needs to be very iterative. Otherwise, you lock in bad governance. it's interesting to me that I went my entire life quickly not accepting religion in my life because I think, like it does with everybody, I was early to the fact that the messaging doesn't make any sense for our present context of what the universe is. So, Immaculate Conception, all these, you know, like I said, um, and then I went through a progression of being like mad about it and sort of passionately opposed to just the very notion of religion. And now I think I've just become today the most deeply religious person on the planet, maybe. Because I've defined religion as just network software. And it's like a O1 switch on a node. And if it's turned on, then it's prescribed to a network protocol that allows me to collaborate at a higher level than somebody who doesn't have it can. Because I, if I build this thing out properly and I encourage the right um, contributors early, if I can attract them, then we can design a, because it turns out that's the most important thing. That is our most, so this is why an atheist needs to give up all that anger. You need to drill into what the thing is from first principles, and then you need to take it apart and grab what works and what does, and throw out what doesn't, and apply all modern understanding and innovation in, that our technology has given us and our engineering capability. Now we have to craft something, a religion that's way more resilient with clearly communicated incentives. And now it's not just this vague good, evil, heaven, hell thing that clearly doesn't work. I mean, it helps. If you scare a bunch of people enough into thinking that they're going to be damned for bad action, it creates useful-ish ongoing incentives, but it gets, the governance of it gets all screwy when people inject their weirdnesses in it, like, you know, and get power hungry and bad notions get accepted, like the priest can't have sexual relations. You know, I think that if we can create that greater that is essentially a religion um, that we can use today, and if we build it properly to where it iterates and it doesn't hang on to bad notions for long, it has a really good self-adjusting mechanism, then that means we can um, coordinate with maximum efficiency, and we can integrate exponential gains quicker than all the competing nodes. And so pretty soon this religion swallows everything because it's engineered so fucking efficiently. Once you realize what this shit is and how it works, and if you get some really, I would say, healthy minds, here's the thing. The first to this thing I'm crafting only, it brings in and propagates healthy, high order thought. So um, it's like you look at the universe, you realize there's no good evil. There's just weather patterns in a chaos engine, and it's uses evolution to build out complex systems. And once you have that knowledge, you can design really efficient systems to interact with it, to where you're always kind of gravitating towards the high pressure areas. The, you're building weather controls. You know, we can build in stuff that engineers the absolute best outcomes for everyone. Oh man, gotta somehow make this work. But yeah, I'm not just. I went from son of a Methodist church nut that used to get, man, I tell you what, every Sunday talk to herself for 3 hours. And I remember, like, and she was just this weird combination of forcing me to be the adult in the room from infancy. Brilliant woman, but she, because of her codependencies and her special recipe of interesting, I don't know, her model was just strange. And, but it was definitely good. Like my mother, I would describe as being a very good person that just annoyed the shit out of you with her weirdness. And um, that was just the right cocktail to breed in me like early consideration of the validity of her claims. So I pushed back on religion when I was, 6, 7. I'm like, wait a minute. One of us has to think about this like an adult. So, and so that created the angry atheist, the guy who was always trying to, in his 20s, spend time in conversations with people that would talk to me about, like, what's the difference between an agnostic and an atheist? And I'd make arguments like, well, if you want to be really true in your logic, you have to concede that you can't prove there isn't, that they're not right. So that's how I would like, if I get into those debates when I was young. And then I went through a phase of just sort of like once I hit my 40s, I came and I found Stoicism. I came really to peace with what religion is. And once I started looking at it as like an engineer, um, I'm very accepting of it. And I look at it through such a different lens than everybody is. I'm really just looking at it now like the analytics, like how long did this one last? What's its weighting now amongst? In a time where all the old narratives are fading and they're all losing any um, significant uh, collection weight. Um, and now I've gone from that Zen space to thinking, holy shit, I need to draft a new religion. The big one that I think is just going to work, that will, because I intend to build it such that all of the incentives are aligned for it to propagate forever and always win. Oh, Jesus. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to now listen to What Did I Say by Ray Charles.
So I think I think I decided I'm going to just release today's and maybe yesterday's walk and talk, which is supposed to be tagged private. But okay, so what do I mean by that? When I do the walk and talk, I've intentionally designed it to be really unfiltered so that I free up compute in my mind for creativity. I'm not allocating any of my available compute to doing real-time filtering for presentation, for accessibility, or security. And that's really freeing. If I set up that model, or if I configure my state that way. And then I'm also on a sufficiently recent marijuana fast, and then I inject THC, I'm able to get the right creativity level. I'm able to do sustained creative thought that's unencumbered. And I'm even able, because I'm trying to capture it verbally, it even, I think, makes sense. I'm not eating up a ton of resources on the translation. So I was thinking I would do a public capture on video today, and I was starting to like charge things up and get myself in the right mind frame to be on camera. And I kind of talked myself out of it. So I listened to the capture I did right after I got home. And I think that it's acceptable for public broadcast. So I'm going to go ahead and put that out there with this wrapper that that's a really good description of what I do. And as you listen to that, know that what I'm doing is I'm riffing. I'm doing what a jazz musician does. I'm finding optimal mind state, and then I'm supplementing an alkaloid from my ecosystem that boosts creativity, and I'm recording it in real time. And well, you'll see what the output looks like, or you'll hear what the output looks like. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish lunch here, and I'm charging the batteries for my GoPro. And I think I'm going to go do another capture of a walk and talk. I'm going to just do another 3 miles today. And I'm going to capture the video so that I can make I can make it a more rich signal. You can see kind of what my visual stimulus is, and you can hear me taking steps and sort of what's happening biologically for me. And I think that paints, so that's really important, I think, for state copy. I'm uncomfortable with giving up privacy. I mentioned that in like the first episode. I was gonna I suspect, as the founder of State Copy, an inevitable outcome that I'm sort of racing towards is total authenticity, sort of like becoming a baseline for it. And that means I'm going to have to give up privacy, which has always been something that's really important to me. As I logic out what I am and I build this model for how the universe works, it doesn't matter as much to me. But I still haven't totally given... I still can't totally let it go. And when I feel like it creates a subconscious filter for the content I'm capturing, when I know that there's people watching me. You know what I mean? So because I'm trying to maintain optimal compute where I'm not encumbered by those greedy processes in my mind, it means I'm going to hang on to privacy for a while, but I will go create a video capture. And what I think my commitment to the community is going to be is, as I get more and more comfortable with this and how it's received, I think I'm just going to readily give away even my private captures. And I think I have to do that to build out the most effective state capture. And I think because that's my process, it becomes a really good baseline for establishing trust. So if I'm trying to create a composable layer, a composable trust protocol for sharing information on the internet, I think the logical outcome is, so if you'll have to apologize for the analogy, but because I'm trying to think through the lens of religion, if our religion's Jesus, I think if in state copy, our Jesus is just a regular node like everybody else, that establishes the baseline and the initial foundation. I think that particular node, my intuition has to be fully authentic. So it means I have to offer up the most embarrassing details of my life for public consumption. And then I have to talk about how I grew from them. That is wildly uncomfortable for me. And until I'm reasonably certain that this is going to propagate properly, I don't see any reason to give that up. And so hear it in my tone, and as you hear me think in real time, I see that as the unavoidable conclusion of this for me, my part in it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do rich capture as I go, and so that I can think freely. I'm going to do rich capture, but I'm going to release it temporarily, like in stages, and I'll augment everything with the visual, with the video track that aligns with the audio track later, and that allows me to, like I said, think freely and get all the benefit of that. And then once the theorem gets proven out, then I can add all of that richer. I can enrich the data set over time with what I hold back. And because it's all, proof of history, you'll be able to see in time as these thoughts develop. And that will become a proof for my personality. I'm going to finish lunch now.